For 6 years, Peter Esele was the president of the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, the body set up to organize and unite all registered senior staff associations in Nigeria into a single entity. Described as a firebrand unionist and a tough negotiator, you either loved him or you hated him, depending on which side of the table he was on and which side of the table you were on. Peter Esele finished his 2 terms as TUC President in June last year and has gone back to his job in an oil firm. He joins me today on View from the Top, and I invite you to watch my conversation with him. Thank you for joining us, Peter. You were Pengasan President before becoming President of the TUC. And Pengasan has been fighting this long-drawn battle with government. Why should government not sell the refineries?
First is what Pengasan is after is when you use the word fight. I would not want to use the word fight because I think fight is negative. Pengasan just wants the government to do what is right. What is right? Due process. Why do you want to sell? But I think the minister have refuted that she never said she was going to sell, but it was going to be privatized. So. And again, I think there's a difference between sell and privatize, but we all know where they're going because most times in this part of where they're going. Yeah, in this part of the world, the more you look, the less you see. Because if you go back, when I was Pengasan President, I signed up on 5149, which means the federal government will own 49% of the stake, while the remaining 51 will be with the core operator, just like the NLNG model, where the core operator happens to be Shell and the oil majors, while the NNPC holds the federal government share in LNG. And it's working. They're declaring huge profit. But then why can't we do the same thing in refineries? Why our refineries not working? So there is a whole history behind why we are where we are. So what the unions are saying right now is, first, we have the Petroleum Industry Bill, which it was Oil and Gas Implementation Committee, which metamorphosed to Petroleum Industry Bill. That bill, it's our expectation that that bill will go a long way towards resolving a whole lot of issues in the oil and gas industry. But as I'm talking to you now, that's the longest bill in any part of the world.
12 years in the making.
Yes. So now, why has that bill not been passed? And that's what the unions are asking for. Let's have a law that will govern this sector, not cherry picking. Today you say you are taking up the refinery. And again, they also have to defend their jobs. Now, if you sell up the refinery, what will happen to the pipeline? What will also happen to the crude to the refinery? How are they going to get their crude? I know they are going to tell you it doesn't really matter. The company we are selling it to can go ahead and look for crude. But then you also have to ensure that that same company, you are giving that company an environment where the company will thrive. Because it's only when the company thrives that the workers can keep their job. We always say we have a symbiotic relationship. Just as we want to make sure we enjoy our right, we also want to make sure the company survives, because when the company survives, then we have a job. So both Nupeng and Pengasan are looking at the whole picture. They're looking at the whole basket. But government wants to go into the past and just pick something, and that is what the unions are not comfortable with.
What solution is the union suggesting?
I think in the long run, if you have the PIB bill, unions are on board with that. I think the very, very worst option that union will take will be they will be ready to accept the NLNG model. That is all things being equal.
What will make the refineries work, apart from the 49-51 solution that you mentioned?
Yeah, because too much politics. You know, there's too much politics in the business of NNPC. First of all, you cannot take the refineries away from NNPC. NNPC is the one managing the refineries. It's like I was talking to somebody earlier, and I was like, you are complaining about NNPC, you are complaining about the refineries, and you are not looking at, okay, how is that organization structured? How do they run that place? Now, the office of the GMD of NNPC is political. Somebody comes up and is made the GMD, and if the president or whoever is the leader of the country is not comfortable with the GMD, probably not because he's in the course of his job is not competent, because of one or two other reasons, and you lose your job. There was a time, I think for like 10, 12 years, you have like between 5 and 6 GMDs of NNPC. So tell me, which serious organization will have such turnover of GMDs? And you expect that there will be policy, there will be continuity? No. So at the end of the day, if you have a turnover like that, what happens is that the GMD of NNPC will not be loyal to the act that set up NNPC. He will be loyal to whoever put him there. And that is one of the problems that we have. And then that now also flows down to whoever becomes the MD of PPMC and all the various subsidiaries of NNPC. Then you also look at the issue of turnaround maintenance. In time past, turnaround maintenance of refineries, it's not a front page news that NNPC is doing turnaround maintenance. These days, it's like China's television. Who knows when you are maintaining your camera or when you are whatever you are doing? You have engineers in-house who deal with things like this. So in time past, engineers in NNPC are responsible for all of this turnaround maintenance. And those who build refineries, it's something that is done behind the scene. Suddenly from the military era, that's why I always say when this decay we are all crying about started long ago. Now, suddenly in the military era, they took the turnaround maintenance from NNPC, and it became a matter for the Supreme Military Council or Armed Forces Ruling Council. And when the politicians also came on board, they continued with it, even though it was wrong, by making turnaround maintenance a Federal Executive Council issue. And then what you now have is $200 million is going to be spent on turnaround maintenance. And then that means you have to decide who gets what contract. So if I'm not a loyal person to you, if I'm not in your good books, no matter how good I am, I may not get the contract. So Mr. A, who is well connected in government, gets the contract. Mr. B, who is competent, who has a technical skill, will not get a contract. So Mr. A gets the contract, he goes to Mr. B. And then the process of giving the contract to Mr. B, Mr. A has already taken whatever court. And then Mr. B, who has to execute the project, what now happens is that Mr. B may find out that whatever he has left may not even be enough for him to execute the project. And because so many people are behind the Mr. A getting the contract, so when there's no sufficient money to do turnaround maintenance, so what you have is that almost every year or every other year we are doing turnaround maintenance. So that is where the decay started from. So if we now say we want to make it work, put round pegs in round holes. Let this whole thing be taken care of by those people that are there.
A while ago, we talked about the PIB, which has taken 12 long years, which has been in the making for about 12 years. The few sticking points in that PIB appears to be things like the fiscal gaps, issues surrounding the host communities and the institutional authorities. But there are several other issues on which there is already a consensus. And this bill, why are we waiting until everybody agrees with every clause in the PIB before it is passed?
I think that is very, very unfortunate. Because an executive bill, for goodness sake. And I happen to have been part of when it was OGIC. And immediately after our subsidy strike, that was one of the reasons why some of us said, oh, this is an opportunity for us to now make sure this PIB goes. And also part of it when it became PIB, Petroleum Industry Bill Implementation Committee. What one would have expected was, this is an executive bill coming from the presidency. And the PDP is the majority in the Senate. The PDP was the majority in the House of Rep. And this is the party of the president. So the first thing in my head was, is it that they really didn't have a party plan around the oil and gas? There is no part of the world that you will not have sticking point in terms of passing bills, even in the US that we are all copying from. But then there is what I call a give and take process, whereby you say, oh, 10% is going to host community. If you ask me to do, okay, 10% is going to the host community. Okay, the other side of the divide says, oh, no, these guys are getting too much. Okay, what is it that those guys are lacking that you can also look, okay, let us do some trade-off. That's politics. That's the way I look at it. It's give and take. So it's my own belief that the political leadership should do a lot more. Because this whole thing is not speaking well of us as a people, because this is the first time we're really going to have a law, a holistic law that will run that sector. The other laws we are talking about, most of the laws were made in the 60s and late 50s by our colonial masters. And that's the unfortunate side of the whole thing. The fiscal regime, I think it's the same thing that is obtained in other parts of the world. Of course,
despite the protestations of the oil majors.
No company, no war. The only reason why a company exists is to make more profit. If it's possible that they pay 5% or even 2%, or they don't pay tax at all, companies will welcome it.
So we should take their protestations.
Yes, they can't protest. They have a right to protest. All you need to do is look at it carefully. Is that what they operate in Norway? Is that what they operate in Saudi Arabia? Is that what they operate in other parts of the world?
They're threatening to take their business to some other places where they say the environment is more friendly.
I think if you ask me that, what I always say is the only issue that I think we have in this country is let's deal with our security issues and then create the environment. This is 160 million population, 60 million people.
Big market.
Big market. We don't need to beg anybody for anything. When anybody wants to opt out, more people will also come in. That's the way I look at it. I also think that open up the space. Even I'm happy now that probably in the next 10 years, 30% of production will be coming from local companies. Even though sometimes I also have a beef with some of these local companies because they are very, very anti-union. That's one problem I have with them. But in the long run, with the marginal oil fields that are going, you're having more people coming. As I'm talking to you now, MPDC, which is an arm of an NPC, is producing like 138,000 barrels a day. So gradually, it's also going to expand. So in another 10 years, you're going to have more Nigerians who will now become big players. Rwanda is growing, doing also very well in the upstream. So more Nigerians are coming up, and it's also an opportunity for Nigerians to now move in. If anybody is moving out, you're moving. And there's one thing I like about the capitalist is that they go to where the money is. So if you are ready, if you pay the right price, you will get anybody to come and work for you.
What is the difference between the original PIB as drafted by the Rilwani Lukman Oil and Gas Sector Implementation Committee that you mentioned a while ago and that which is awaiting passage?
I think the differences has to do with some, like not too much power being given to the minister and the president. That also raise a lot of concern. But I think in all, the differences are minimal, very, very minimal. Because I was a member of the implementation committee, a member of the PIB, normally when a white paper is released, it's an executive bill. Once the white paper is released, you allow the white paper to go. I don't want to start making comments that we further drag the PIB bill the way it is backwards. What we're after now is please look at the areas where the usual Nigerian divide that you think is not comfortable. Those three areas are the major sticking points that you've just highlighted. And I think there are things that the political leadership can deal with. I don't really see a whole lot of sticking points outside of those three areas.
We'll take a break now. We ask you to join us again in a bit.